All right, let's go into this other issue, the Omnibus bill. The Andrews government is continuing to negotiate with crossbenchers in an attempt to push the Omnibus bill, which means just a bill with a number of elements in it, on COVID-19 measures, emergency measures they call it, through the state's upper house. The bill allows for the secretary who administers the Public Health and Wellbeing Act 2008 to appoint any public servant as an authorised officer, making it easier to detain people. Not that they've committed a crime, as I said, but they fear they could commit a crime. But it's the lack of clear specificity in the bill that's making experts wary. Experts such as 14 retired judges and leading QCs, Victorian Bar Association, the Bar Council, and the Law Institute of Victoria, which represents solicitors across the state, all stand against the bill as it's drafted. Now, someone who picked up some very serious concerns with this legislation very early on and wrote about it is Mr. Ian Hanke. He's a former media and political advisor to a number of Howard government ministers, 25 years experience in politics. Ian Hanke joins me now. Thank you for your time, Ian Hanke. You wrote in The Spectator that Victoria's Attorney-General Jill Hennessy has done nothing since you broke all of these sort of background worries about the legislation. She's done nothing to alleviate the concerns of all these legal experts. What are the issues?
Well, I'll give you one example. The Law Institute of Victoria wrote to the Attorney-General on September 17, and they raised concerns. They actually said they're very concerned about the extra powers, affording overly unnecessary powers to authorised officers who could be anyone, according to this Act. But more than that, they raised concerns about the Mental Health Act of 2008 being overridden, which protects people with mental impairments. This Act, which is designed to protect people who are ill, is going to be totally overridden. All the rights and protections that mentally ill people have in Victoria are now going to be swept away. The minister wrote back, barely even acknowledged this, except to say that maybe if these people were arrested and detained, that they might be held in a hospital, or they might be held in a quarantine facility, or they might be held at home. We don't know. There is no specificity. But more than that, she didn't guarantee the rights of these mentally impaired people. This is just one example of the extreme overreach of this bill. This bill affects everybody in the state.
I just want to pick up a point too. David Davis, who's the Liberal leader of the government in the upper house, if I can call him that, he was on the show, Ian Hanke, the other day, and he spoke to my viewers and was explaining that it hasn't gone through any sort of committee process. It's been passed very quickly through the lower house where the government has the numbers, but it hasn't gone to a scrutiny process that usually happens for all legislation. Federally, you will have remembered it as regs and ords in the Senate, regulations and ordinances. There is a Victorian government equivalent. It has not gone, it's bypassed that committee, and that the government is still pushing very hard with the crossbenchers. Now, there's lots of allegations that when they got through those emergency powers a couple of weeks ago, that secret deals were done. There's a lot of concern that that is happening now at this time. If it was to be ran through the Parliament, and it could be as early as not next week, but the week after, what does it mean for Victorians?
It means that your civil liberties have been swept away. What this bill allows is for virtually the indiscriminate detention of someone by an authorised officer and to be held without any legal recourse whatsoever for an indefinite period. All the bill says is that they have to be checked once every 24 hours by an authorised officer. We saw the impact of that with the disastrous hotel quarantine scheme. There is no protections and no rights afforded to anybody under this bill. Today, I might just make this point to show you how ridiculous it is the way the government is trying to backfill this. Today, crossbenchers were given a briefing saying that in rural Victoria, firefighters could become authorised officers with all the powers of arrest and detention that needs. Now, why are fire officers being given this role? What are firefighters going to do? Are they going to go and castigate a bushfire and say, you naughty thing? You know, this is just nonsense. I'm never, in 35 years of politics, I have never seen such a shocking bill in my life.
I've got to ask you too, reports today very clear that Victorian Labor, because they banned the use of cash payments to pay for memberships, which for people at home to follow that means if you join up to the Labor Party, you have to use a credit card. The credit card has to match who you are on the membership form. Before, that wasn't the case. A quarter of Labor members, so-called members that were there before, are no longer there. Today, Labor is short 4,500 members who didn't renew when there was these new transparency measures. Now, other than the financial hit, obviously, that is to the party, Ian Hanke, what else does that tell you?
It tells you that the whole of the Labor Party is not a particularly democratic organisation, and that corruption as an underlying thread throughout the organisation. It's been like this for many years. It's been revealed time and time and time again. The Victorian division has now actually been taken over by the federal executive of the Labor Party, and they are trampling over democratic rights as well. I don't know if you saw it today, but the Premier would like to have one of his office staff appointed as a replacement for Jenny McCarthy, the recently resigned health minister. She got special dispensation from the federal executive of the Labor Party to join the Labor Party and run as a candidate. Now, this it is extraordinary, but it says a lot about the contempt for which the authorities that run the Labor Party have for their membership, because they're not going to have a say.
They're not going to have a say. But I think Victorians locked up in their homes are just as angry about other things too. Ian Hanke, thank you for your time.
My pleasure indeed. Good night.